Week 8, we saw some big-time fantasy finishes from the high-end running backs. Of course, we had Jonathan Taylor, who finished as RB1 on the week again, to no surprise, another monster week, followed by James Cook, who had another great week for him as well, still making big plays in this Bills offense. Saquon Barkley found his way inside of the top 5, getting back to his old form where we saw the Eagles running the ball a little bit more, followed by Breece Hall, who had a passing touchdown with a crazy comeback there for the Jets, getting their first win on the week, and followed by Chase Brown to round out the top 5. We had 9 of our guys finish inside of the top 15 on the week, so we love to see that. We've got some surprise finishers from guys like R.J. Harvey, Isaiah Davis, Kareem Hunt, even Samaje Perine and Ollie Gordon found their way inside of the top 25 on the week. Tons of things to break down here. We even had some dud players like Alvin Kamara, Ramondre Stevenson, Bijan Robinson, Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard, Quinshon Judkins. A lot of disappointment, but it was also bye-Mageddon, so we got a lot of guys coming back into our lineups this week. It's time to look ahead to Week 9 here on the Face Off Sports Network, so let's get right to it. Looking ahead to Week 9 here, we've got 4 players that are going to be moving from our starting positions to our benches, with the Browns, the Bucks, the Eagles, and the Jets all going on bye. We're going to move those running backs down, talk about some other names, talk about some spot fillers. That's important because, again, those are 4 players that would likely be ranked inside of the top 24, with guys like Bucky Irving if he was playing, Rachaad White if Bucky didn't play, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, and, of course, Quinshon Judkins. But let's talk about the players who are here, and let's get straight to Tier 1. And this is typically where I do 6 players in each tier, but I just can't do it, not with this first tier, because these big names are absolutely balling out. So let's start with Tier 1 here, where we have Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Devon Achane, and James Cook. Now, I already mentioned it once, but Jonathan Taylor, there's not much more you can say. I mean, 37 points on the week, 21 carries for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns, added 12 receiving yards and a touchdown there as well. I mean, he's been fantastic. He is super high in every single metric you can look at, whether it's yards after contact, breakaway yards, carries over 10 yards, carries over 15 yards, missed tackles forced, whatever it is. He's basically top 5 in everything. He's having an absolute monster year, making a heck of a case to be the MVP of the NFL right now. Of course, you could talk about Daniel Jones and what he's doing with that offense too, but Jonathan Taylor, man, there's no stopping him. I get he's playing the Pittsburgh defense, the matchup. I don't really care. He is the RB1. He's going to stay in this position until we find a way to move him out of it. I mean, he's been absolutely fantastic, and I just think that that's going to continue to roll. Again, he's top in literally everything. And when we look at my running back 2 here, Christian McCaffrey, I understand not the best week for him. He had 9 points, 8 carries for 25 yards, and 3 catches for 43 yards. Gets to take on the New York Giants. Worth noting, the Giants have been absolutely bleeding points to the running back position over the last couple weeks. We saw the Broncos have that comeback where both running backs were involved. Again, they gave up points this past week. So I kind of expect that they're going to have their way a little bit. I mean, we've talked about on this channel here about how Christian McCaffrey's been super involved in the passing game. Again, 3 catches, but he had 6 targets on the week. I think he's going to continue to be involved. So I would be starting Christian McCaffrey, and I'm pretty bullish on him this week. But Derrick Henry is going to be my RB3, and I understand it's not been pretty so far this season, but you have to understand he's playing the Miami Dolphins, and that's been a matchup we've been trying to target because they have been absolutely destroyed by running backs week after week after week. And I get they pulled out the win this past week, but Derrick Henry has played better. I mean, this past week he had 19 points, 21 carries for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson should be back in the lineup, and I think that's only going to help this Ravens offense. If they can get back to going, keeping the drives going, sustained, so that way Derrick Henry can be on the field a little bit more, that's only going to help him and give him more opportunity. He's still high up in a lot of metrics like yards, attempts, yards after contact, breakaway percentage, all of that. And I've been highlighting that each week that it will come for Derrick Henry. He's still doing well. He had the fumbles early on, but I think he's going to be okay as we move forward. Jahmyr Gibbs, not much to say here. He's coming off the bye, gets to take on Minnesota this week, so I'm throwing him in there. He's been fantastic the entire season. No real concerns there, so we'll carry on. Bijan Robinson, though, is my RB5 on the week. Gets to take on the New England Patriots. That's a tough matchup. New England is top 10 in points against running back. They don't really give up too much there. Only 5 points on the week this past week for Bijan, 9 carries for 25 yards and 3 catches for 23 yards. But I don't care about the matchup. Bijan's good enough where it just takes one play for him. I get he had a bad week, but every running back's going to have one of those. You're going to continue to play him. He should be a great start going forward, regardless of the matchup. But Achane here is my running back 6. I would love to put James Cook ahead of him, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But he gets to take on the Baltimore Ravens, who, despite what Baltimore might be doing on offense, they have been pretty bad on defense. So the matchup there is great for Achane. Even if this Dolphins offense struggles, he continues to find a way to be super involved. He's getting tons and tons of targets, tons of catches. So you love that for Achane. I mean, this past week, 20 points, 18 carries for 67 yards, added 5 catches for 5 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown. Again, that passing volume is just so great for him. How can you not play him? He's super sustainable. He's going to get the volume to find a way to be a top 10 running back. But let's round out my tier 1 here. And like I said, normally I do 6, but I can't keep James Cook out. He's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, this past week, 34 points, 19 carries for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. If it wasn't for the season that Jonathan Taylor was having, James Cook would absolutely be in the argument for being a MVP candidate. I mean, he's looking fantastic. I believe he has 9 touchdowns on the year so far, 7 touchdowns. He's taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a little bit of a tougher matchup. They're not giving up a ton of points to the running back position. They're top 10 in that regard as well. So I would still be starting James Cook. I know that's kind of the obvious, but I still think the matchup, even if it's difficult, he has the ability to be a top 10, or in this case, a top 6 running back, just because he's been making these big plays repeatedly. And this Bills offense is starting to get rolling again. And what we know about this Bills team is once they get running the ball, they are tough to stop. So I like James Cook this week, regardless of that matchup. But let's get to my tier 2 here, where I shrank down a little bit, and I think it's justified because these top 12 running backs are so good, and then it kind of has a tier break there. But let's start with Josh Jacobs here, Javonte Williams, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, and Ashton Jeanty to round out my tier 2. Josh Jacobs, man, he is as steady as they come. I've said it a lot. He's one of the most underrated running backs in the entire NFL. 9 touchdowns on the year. He added another one this past week where he had 13 points. I get it. Not the most efficient week for him. 13 carries, 33 yards, and a touchdown. Added 3 catches for 12 yards. They looked pretty good. I mean, they were throwing the ball all over the place on Sunday Night Football. So I like the Green Bay Packers going forward. I will say that we need to monitor Josh Jacobs and see what happens there. Wilson was the backup there. He got a bunch of run too, had over 10 opportunities. It's worth noting that Josh Jacobs had an injury note earlier in the week and earlier in the season. I think he'll still play. Don't really think there's any too concern there, but it wouldn't surprise me if he pops back up on that injury report as we move through the week. So be sure to monitor that if you're not already. Javonte Williams here as my RB9 on the week. Dallas, another good run blocking offense. I know they didn't have the best week this past week, but they get to take on the Arizona Cardinals. So I like that matchup there. He had 18 points, 13 carries for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns. So still produce for your fantasy team, even if he wasn't producing big time box scores. So I like Javonte. He's another guy that's up there in basically every single rushing metric. So as long as this offense continues to score a ton of points, which I think they will, he'll be fine. I mean, again, they got boat raced in this game, but still this Dallas offense put up a ton of points. And if that defense just has any rhyme or reason to stop the ball, they'll be a good team. But right now they can't stop anything, and that just means that there's more opportunities for this Dallas offense to move the ball down the field. So I like his play. I think it's a top 10 play this week against the Cardinals. Kyron Williams rounding out my top 10 here. I love Kyron Williams, man. His involvement in the passing game is just so surprising. He's coming off the bye week, gets to take on the New Orleans Saints. So I really like the matchup there. He's got the ability to put up a big week, could easily sneak into the top 5 if he gets a couple touchdowns. So he's someone to monitor. Definitely a DFS play I would be interested in. But welcome back, Chase Brown, who gets back up to about where he started at the beginning of the season. He's sitting here in tier 2 as my running back 11, gets to take on the Chicago Bears. Pretty good matchup there against running backs. So we like the Bears giving up some points. So there leads to opportunity for Chase Brown. Joe Flacco is on the injury report, which I think would cause me to move Chase Brown down if something were to happen to him. But Chase Brown looked good this past week. 25 points, 12 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown, added 3 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. He's another one of those running backs that's super involved in all aspects of the game. He's top 10 in carries inside of the 5. Hasn't really amounted to rushing touchdowns, but that could easily regress into something better for his fantasy finishes. He also is top 10 in routes run as a running back, 9th overall. So you like to see that. He's continuing to be involved in the passing game. They're not really working in any of the other running backs on this team. Yes, Samaje Perine had a good week, so we'll note that as we did at the beginning of the show. But Taj Brooks still not a factor at all in this. But let's round out tier 2 with Ashton Jeanty here. Takes on the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a tougher matchup. Jeanty's coming off bye. He's still one of those guys that's pretty good in running back metrics, especially in yards after contact, because he's getting hit at the line of scrimmage basically every single play. This Raiders offensive line is not good, just like this Raiders offense is not good. So Jeanty will go as the offense goes, and hopefully he can find his way in the end zone and make a big difference for your fantasy team as we move forward. But let's get straight to tier 3 here and back to 6 players. Let's start with DeAndre Swift, Travis Etienne, Kimani Vidal, Tyrone Tracy, Jaylen Warren, and J.K. Dobbins. Crazy to see Tracy's name on here, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Let's start with DeAndre Swift, who gets to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. You could not ask for anything more. I mean, he has a good case to be inside of the top 12 just based on this matchup. The Bengals are absolutely bleeding points to the running back position. They're first overall in points given up, giving up almost 31 points a week to the running back position. So DeAndre Swift, Manungai, there's some big opportunities for them going forward. DeAndre Swift had a decent week, 15 points, 11 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown, added a couple catches for 26 yards. So I expect him to be better. Caleb has been struggling as of recent, but I think the Bears are going to get back on their ways, especially if something were to happen to Joe Flacco and he does not play. That only bodes better for this Bears offense taking on Cincinnati, where the defense hasn't been good and the offense has been bad without Joe Flacco. So monitor that. I think Swift is someone that could easily move up if we get some more information. Maybe like Josh Jacobs gets hurt or something like that. He could find his way inside of that top 12. But Travis Etienne as my next running back. The matchup here, he gets to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. I like that matchup. The Raiders defense has been playing okay recently, but the offense is not that good, so that game could easily get out of hand if the Jags can keep it all together. He's coming off the bye week, so maybe the Jags and Trevor Lawrence kind of spell out some of the difficulties they've been having, and they get back to being a more proficient offense that's going to run the ball and establish the run, where Travis Etienne was really high in breakaway yards, really high in breakaway percentage, yards after contact. He was making missed tackles. So Etienne has been a big player in this offense, and I think he's going to have to get back to that role if this Jags team wants to be successful. And let's move on to our next guy, Kimani Vidal here at running back 15. Great week for him. 19 points, 23 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown. So we love to see that. Hampton is still in a boot, so I don't expect Hampton to be out. Haskins was out. So this looks like it's going to be Vidal's role as we move forward. I mean, the 23 opportunities, you can't ask for much more than that. Gets to take on the Tennessee Titans, so we like that matchup there. Titans giving up a lot of points to the running back position. So we're going to continue to monitor that and play Vidal as long as we can. I mean, the opportunities there, the offense is humming, so we love his volume and we love his opportunity. But Tyrone Tracy, running back 16 for me. Of course, we have the news. Cam Skattebo out. Looks like he's going to be out for a while. The injury was pretty nasty if you did not see it. But what we know is Tyrone Tracy that last year was a serviceable running back. He did well in his role. It wasn't necessarily that he was a big-time guy that just established the run, but he's involved enough. He's a former wide receiver. He can be coming out of the backfield and get the ball thrown to him. Jackson Dart was checking it down to Skattebo, so I think he could absolutely check it down to Tracy. It's worth noting, Tracy led this backfield after Skattebo went out. Singletary got a little bit of opportunity, but not enough to be really worth mentioning. I mean, he will absolutely spell Tracy as we move forward, but Tracy having the opportunity once Cam Skattebo got hurt, 7 points in the game, 10 carries for 39 yards, 2 catches for 14 yards. I like what this offense is doing with Jackson Dart. They're continuing to try and get better. It's not a very good team, but I do think that with Tracy involved, it's not that different from Cam Skattebo, to be honest. Scat is a little bit more of a bruiser, but Tracy can do a lot of the same things that Skattebo can do, and he's a veteran. So I think I'm going to give him the opportunity. I think he deserves to be inside of the top 24 on the week. Jaylen Warren is my running back 17. Tough matchup. Takes on the Colts, so we don't love that. 9 points this past week, 13 carries for 62 yards. He's another one of the surprise players. Is super involved. This offense is kind of up and down all over the place. He's top 10 in routes run as a running back. So as long as he's out there on the field, he's going to continue to have ways to get opportunities in ways of targets or rushing attempts. But I think that the Steelers offense is just difficult to trust, and the matchup is a little bit scary. So you got to be ready to temper expectations. But he's got the volume that you're going to play him. He's a great flex option if you have that luxury of putting him in your flex. J.K. Dobbins is my RB18. I think he's criminally underrated, man. He's been one of those guys that has continued to step up. I mean, he's really high in almost every single running back metric. 7th overall in missed tackles forced with 23 on the season. 19 carries of over 10 yards, which is good for second of among all running backs. He's first in carries over 15 yards with 12 of those. He's top 10 in attempts. This offense is starting to roll. I love what I'm seeing with J.K. Dobbins. Yes, he's in a split backfield, so there's going to be times like this week where Harvey got some touchdowns, but J.K. Dobbins is absolutely good enough. I mean, 14 points, 15 carries for 111 yards. I'm starting him, and I'm comfortable. I get the matchup isn't great taking on Houston, but this offense has started to come alive. I mean, we saw the comeback against the Giants. This past week, they got the run game rolling, so I like what the Denver Broncos are doing, and I like what they're doing with the run game, and what they're doing up front is really special, man. You got to tune in. That offensive line play has been really, really good. J.K. Dobbins is someone that I'm going to be starting all over the place in DFS if I can. But let's get to my tier 4 and round out the top 24 here with David Montgomery, Woody Marks, Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Pacheco, RJ Harvey, and Rico Dowdle. Now, the Monday night game just finished up a few minutes ago, so the stats there are still coming in. David Montgomery as my RB19 coming off the bye week. We've talked about the Lions offensive line several times on this show. There's not much to say. If he gets in the end zone, he's going to absolutely hit this and be a top 24 guy. If he doesn't, he'll be just on the edge just because the volume, and Gibbs is the starter. Woody Marks, surprise week for him, 15 points, 10 carries for 15 yards, and added 4 catches for 49 yards. He's another guy that's been involved. He's been a little bit more efficient, in my opinion, than Nick Chubb. He continues to be involved in the game. The Texans offense looks like they're coming back to life. The matchup against Denver, not ideal. So we'll see what happens there. But Marks is someone that I'm worth I'm thinking about plugging in a lot of lineups. I think there's a good chance he can continue to take away some snaps from Nick Chubb, get a little bit more involved in this offense. But we'll just have to see. I think it's a risky play. I totally understand that. But I like what he's doing right now. Kenneth Walker is my running back 21. I know what everyone's going to say. It's scary, man. It's not great. Washington is good against running backs in points per game. If you go pull up FantasyPros points allowed, they're going to be in the top 10 against running backs. But at the same time, the big playmakers have killed them. So I think there's a guy like Kenneth Walker can absolutely burn Washington. If he gets some open lanes, which has been happening frequently for Washington, it happened again tonight, he can absolutely house it. And I get it. There's a good chance this could easily be Zach Charbonnet, who keeps getting that goal line work after Kenneth Walker works them down the field. But he's been pretty steady about getting 10 to 12 carries and about 70, 80 yards on a week. So he could absolutely do that against Washington. Maybe he gets a couple catches. I think he's going to find his way in the end zone because Washington right now is struggling against run games and against those running backs that can make big plays. So watch out for Kenneth Walker this week. I get it's been frustrating, but I think he's a good play. And followed by none other than Isaiah Pacheco, who played tonight against Washington Commanders, gets to take on Buffalo. Buffalo's been giving up some points to the running back position, so the matchup there is pretty good. He's pretty surprisingly high in routes run as a running back. He's top 10 there. I wouldn't have guessed that if I haven't been monitoring it, but against Washington, he had 6 points, 12 carries for 58 yards. That game got a little bit weird. They kind of got cute at the end zone. Pacheco easily could have got a goal line carry. Kareem Hunt, As we talked about earlier, he was a surprise top 24 finish. The Kansas City backfield is just kind of tough to predict. It's about which one of them is going to get the volume and which one of them is going to fall in the end zone. So I like Pacheco this upcoming week. He continues to be involved. So if you've wanted to go with Hunt, I can't fault you too much there. But let's round out the top 24 here, and we'll start with R.J. Harvey, another Denver running back. Again, I know I highlighted that the matchup there against Houston is not ideal, but Harvey had by far his best game on the season, 24 points, 7 carries for 46 yards and 2 touchdowns, added a catch for 5 yards and a touchdown. I think he's just a sneaky play. They continue to get him the ball, and he's making plays. So I think that the Denver offense, again, is humming, and I kind of project both running backs to score. I made a bet on that earlier this week, so hopefully that hits. That's kind of something that I'm looking forward to seeing as we move forward. But let's close out the tier here with Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle did not have a great week, 5 points, 8 carries for 54 yards. We saw Canales come out in his postgame presser talk about how he needs to get Rico more involved, and I think that's going to happen. I mean, Rico has earned it. Yes, Chuba Hubbard is absolutely a serviceable back. They paid him in the offseason, but Rico is one of those guys like J.K. Dobbins, like Jonathan Taylor, and those other names that I've talked about that is just top 5 or top 10 in nearly every running back metric. So he deserves to get some more opportunity and get some more burn in this offense. And I think they will do just that. Bad side is they take on the Green Bay Packers, and that's not a great matchup for Rico this week. So I would temper expectations. We have to monitor the health situation there of the quarterback room. If Bryce Young's playing, if Andy Dalton's playing, lots and lots of concerns there. But I like Rico Dowdle if he can get the volume, if he gets that opportunity. But the matchup, I think, just kind of limits him where he's a low-end RB2 or a flex play, to be honest. But let's get to the streamers. We talked about how there's some buys this week that could absolutely impact you. You might have some injuries you have to be working through, like the Cam Skattebo injury. So let's start with the obvious. The obvious pickup is going to be Tyrone Tracy, who we talked about earlier, available in about 55% of leagues. So if he's out there, absolutely go grab him. I would be willing to dump a ton of fab into him. I'm talking, 50 to 80% of my budget, maybe even more than that if I'm desperate and I'm winning. Kyle Monangai, another guy that is available pretty widely out there in leagues. I get it. Not necessarily a great week this past week, 7 carries for 24 yards, but the volume is there. The matchup is there. If you're in a deep league, he's absolutely someone I would be willing to start or pick up as a handcuff. Because again, you never know what could happen. I love going out there and picking up a handcuff right before the game start if I have a bench spot. Cut that wide receiver you're not using. Cut that second quarterbacks. Cut that second defense or tight end. Pick up one of these running backs that's a handcuff, because if something happens, that value suddenly shoots up. If you went and picked up Tyrone Tracy before this week started, that's huge for your lineup. It absolutely changes things. We're not talking about a guy that has turned into a playoff type running back. And I get the Giants aren't a great team, but we're talking about a starter who's going to get a ton of volume on an offense that has put up some points. So absolutely go out there and grab a guy like Kyle Monangai if you can, and you can drop him after the games are over if he didn't do anything or you need to go get something else. And finally, let's close out with Tajay Spears, another guy who's been involved, found his way in the end zone, scored some points, but Spears has been difficult to predict. It's one of those things. The Titans offense is not good. Pollard and him are going to continue to split the role, but I think Spears is the more athletic and the bigger play opportunity in this offense. So I like Spears. He's another one of those guys that I'd go get. 46% availability is just simply too low for me. And finally, I'd close out with, again, what I say every single week. If you need a spot start, go look for one of those Kansas City running backs. Whichever one you can get. They are so explosive right now on offense. They're continuing to make plays. And we saw 2 or 3 times tonight where they got stopped at the 1-yard line. Go get them, because if they get that rushing touchdown, it's going to be huge for your lineups. But that's going to do it for me. Be sure to like the stream. It helps me out a ton. If you want, comment your questions. I will come back and answer those. Of course, you can catch me live on Wednesdays where I am with the mediators answering all your start sit questions. And I'll see you on Sunday for the start sit live.